All right, I think we're live. I just have to go over to my UBTubi. Let's see. All right. All right, we're live. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in. I apologize for the delay. Today, I have Tone, Told You So Vays from LibertyLifeTrial.com. Also, the host of the podcast, Crypto Scam. And Tone, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let people know who you are, how you got into crypto, and what you do in the space.
Sure, I'll try and make it quick. So I was a former Wall Street, and I heard about Bitcoin in early 2011. It piqued my interest. I got really interested in Bitcoin around 2013 when I saw the situation in Cyprus and their banking shutdown. I finally, got out, got some Bitcoin to really understand what it was. In 2014, I started writing articles, started speaking at some conferences, and then in 2015, I quit my job to kind of be a Bitcoin personality full time. And I'm also a trader, and I trade traditional markets. I have several podcasts. I have my twice a week show about trading and economics on my YouTube channel. Also on my YouTube channel, I have the Crypto Scam podcast, where I find a credible co-host, a different one every time. And then we dig deep into some of the projects like Ethereum, like Ripple, like Dash, and hopefully I'll even start doing things outside the crypto space. I already did like gold manipulation. And I also have, I'm also involved in other podcasts on the World Crypto Network, where every Friday we cover the Bitcoin news of the week. And I also have a show there called On the Record, where I interview people with some really tough questions about the space, because I've been here for a while and I generally understand the technology and how it works.
Wow, man, you're a busy man. I really appreciate you taking out the time to come on my show and talk about the Bitcoin Improvement Proposal 148 user-activated soft fork. And I'd like to just dive into that because I know everybody's excited to kind of hear about it. And could you do me a favor, maybe explain to the audience what this entails? Maybe just like a brief overlay, and then we can kind of dig into it.
Sure. Now, as a disclaimer, I'm still doing all of my reading and all of my understanding about BIP 148 because I wasn't involved in its creation and I wasn't involved in its original promotion. And its original promotion is making a lot of people nervous because even some of the core developers, some of the brightest core developers, are not fully on board with BIP 148, which is understandable. So as a brief overview, so a BIP 148 is also known as UASF, which stands for User Activated Soft Fork. So there's a couple of ways in which Bitcoin code can change. There is a soft fork and a hard fork. So the general consensus, though some people will disagree, is that soft forks are safer. The reason why soft forks are safer is because it doesn't force everyone to update software like the Bitcoin software. A soft fork allows you to still stay on your old software and then convert on your old time. But what a soft fork does is it contracts the rules and in a way makes something a little, the new stuff that's being created a little more restrictive. So new Bitcoin being mined has to conform to the new, more restrictive rules. When you have a hard fork, it's usually the other way around, where the new rules are relaxed. And because the new rules are relaxed, old blocks no longer become compatible. So everyone is forced to upgrade the software. And this started with segregated witness in that it was people wanted to get it in as a soft fork and get miners to agree, but the community couldn't get all the miners to agree on activating a SegWit soft fork, and we'll talk about what SegWit is in a bit. And many people in the community are upset over the fact that Bitcoin is not scaling, and we have this impasse. So there is this movement from the users of Bitcoin, which by all polls seem to indicate that they are strongly in support of getting segregated witness into the Bitcoin code for scalability purposes. So the users have decided to take the matters into their own hands and enforce the rules onto the miners that by placing BIP 148. And the way BIP 148 was put into the system is actually pretty harsh in that BIP 148 automatically activates SegWit on August 1st. That's it. There's nothing that can stop it. And the moment the first block is mined with these new, more contracted rules, we will have a split in the chain. And it gets a little more complicated from there. So I don't know which direction you want to go, Ken.
Well, yeah, let's backtrack a little bit and maybe cover like what segregated witness is and like what.
My bad.
You all right?
Dropping on my desk. Yeah, because I'm at pitch black darkness at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like you're calling from the Batcave. I was wondering though, like if you could explain what segregated witness is and like why users are fighting for it so harshly to get implemented into Bitcoin. Like, what are some of the other options that we had or still have before coming to this?
All right, so the way I see it, there's two reasons why users are fighting so hard for it. One of them is no one is denying the fact that Bitcoin isn't scaling. 3 to 4 transactions a second, which people knew was going to be a problem a few years ago, is now actually becoming a problem with transactions taking a long time, with fees going up, and we need this resolved. And unfortunately, any kind of, well, it's different who you ask, right? Like some people think we need to compromise, but the compromise is unrealistic that is coming from the other side. So there are people that think that blocks need to be bigger and that requires a hard fork. I'm a believer that a hard fork is incredibly dangerous, though this is where the user-activated soft fork gets very, very complicated because the outcome of the user-activated soft fork has a very high probability of creating a hard fork. I have always been against the hard fork. It may sound hypocritical that I am potentially supporting user-activated soft fork. I haven't really put out my full support for it yet. I'm still trying to make sure I'm not on the wrong side of this. I'm still doing my research. And that is something I'm going to inform my followers on my YouTube channel very, very shortly. But this user-activated soft fork has a very high probability of creating the hard fork. And but we don't want the hard fork. Hard forks are very dangerous because it can split Bitcoin into two. But so that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons is we have to do something to get Bitcoin to scale, and we can't wait too much longer. So the users are trying to force segregated witness, which is I believe is the best and only solution we have currently to scale. In addition, it's very, very tested. It's been tested for like a year. At least 3 or 4 other altcoins have already implemented it, and no bugs have yet been discovered. So that's one reason. One reason is we really need to do something. The other reason is trickier, harder to prove. A lot of the users, me included, don't like the current monopoly that's going on in mining, specifically in regards to Bitmain. Bitmain supplies like 70% of the chips, and they have the biggest mining pool, and they basically have the biggest say when it comes to Bitcoin mining. And they have been suspected of doing some, not so clean things as to their competitive advantage. So them being the biggest miner and the biggest chip maker wasn't enough. And a lot of us are seriously suspecting them of using something called ASIC boost, which gives them an advantage on mining blocks at a detriment to Bitcoin because they end up mining non-full blocks with it. They were also recently ridiculed for having like a kill switch in all the hardware that they sold to people, where they have the ability to turn off other people's mining rigs, completely like basically crippling the Bitcoin network. So a lot of people are really, really fed up with this one company in China having so much control. And by doing this user-activated soft fork, in a way, it's either going to force them that they do not control Bitcoin, that users control Bitcoin, or if they choose to fork, they would be eliminated from the Bitcoin network, and then good luck, they can have their own coin. And in reality, if people are a little nervous about them having too much control in the current system, imagine if all of these people that were worried about them having too much control go and start their own more decentralized version of Bitcoin. No one is going to participate in on Bitmain's side, which if people were complaining that it was too centralized by one company before, it would get multiplied times 10 if they split off on their own, right? Like nobody would use it. It would be Bitmain coin. It wouldn't even be, decentralized at all. So, so that's another main reason. And also, the longer this goes on, it adds a potential, someone else creating a solution that's even more friendly to this one miner that many in the Bitcoin community have labeled, as having too much control. And all of the scaling solutions that are on the table besides segregated witness, they are actually okay with, because the suspicion is the other scaling solutions would allow them to keep this ASIC boost advantage in mining, and it would potentially make them even stronger and bigger and completely dominate the Bitcoin mining scene. So, so those are the two reasons as the way I see it. And of course, other people can disagree with me on these.
And I'm sure they will. People love to argue with you on Twitter, I've noticed.
Oh, yeah.
Curious though, what do you think would happen with Bitcoin? I mean, I guess as far as price goes, if this does work or if this doesn't work, like what if we end up with two coins that just live forever, just as long as Ethereum and Ethereum Classic are living alongside each other together? Just curious what you think would happen in those scenarios.
I think it would be a serious problem. I honestly do. I haven't talked about this too much yet on my trading channels because we still have 2 months to figure it out. The Bitcoin ecosystem is still trying to absorb this information of user-activated soft fork BIP 148. There's also a BIP 149 on the table, which is significantly safer, and it extends the adoption of SegWit all the way into next year, but a lot of people think that that's too long. We can't wait that long. Now, if we do have 2 Bitcoins, I think it's a huge problem, huge problem. I don't think Bitcoin would be seen as a good store of value, which is a major property of Bitcoin at the moment. Two Bitcoins would also be fighting over the Bitcoin brand name. Roger Ver kind of has control of that with Bitcoin.com, so it doesn't help. Though, however, someone recently made a joke and said, well, does it really matter? Like, Ken, how often do you go to internet.com?
Yeah, true. Exactly. You could be Bitcoin.bit. Who cares?
Well, right. So, I mean, sooner or later, when Bitcoin becomes obvious to everyone, Bitcoin, the website bitcoin.com would probably not matter at all.
Yeah.
But so there will be a huge problem over the branding of Bitcoin, and how are you going to know which Bitcoin you're actually buying? So this is why I do not foresee two Bitcoins. One of the chains will die, and I'm, I'm I am fairly certain that segregated witness will go on, or at least I will stay on segregated witness. You know, I'm one of the I am committing all of my Bitcoin witness, and a lot of other prominent people are doing the same because I think that is the way to scale. And if we're wrong, it would be unfortunate, and we're wrong. So I don't believe the other chain is going to survive because even though it's going to have all the mining, all we need is a couple of miners to switch, a couple of big miners. The moment user activated soft fork actually gets 51% of the mining, I think it's a done deal. Though at the moment it doesn't really have much. But like I said, people are still processing the information. This is one of the reasons why I'm watching the price very, very carefully, even right now. And thank you very much for having the price in your background. That actually helps me from not continuously looking at my other monitor. But I can see that that's Bitstamp, most likely, correct?
Actually, that's Coinbase. I just zoomed in all the way
Coinbase.
to the
Okay.
price.
Excellent. And the price is holding up, which means one of two things. Either people are confident that user-activated soft fork will succeed, but that one is a little less unlikely because it's so new that people are still absorbing the info. The other thing that it means is that people are still absorbing the info and they're not yet ready to panic. And a few people that are panicking are being fully compensated by new people coming into Bitcoin that have no idea this is even going on. And that could be a little dangerous for them. But yeah, let's just say that. You really want to have a bit of an understanding. And I'm not even sure if it's better for you to keep your Bitcoin with a trusted entity that knows what they're doing in regards to user-activated soft fork, or should you take your time and learn how to protect it yourself? Now, for the new people, I'm not sure what's better. If you've been around Bitcoin for at least 6 months to a year, then you should take matters into your own hands with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would recommend reading up and learning as much as you can on the topic. I'll try to get as many links together after this as possible for the show notes. What is, like, again, you're talking about, like, for the new people, what is something that you would recommend to somebody who doesn't even have Bitcoin yet, that's looking to invest in Bitcoin? And this news just comes out. What's something that they should do? Should they wait, watch, maybe buy, hold, learn? What do you think somebody should do in this stance where they don't even have any Bitcoin yet, but they were really eager to get in, and now this news came out of nowhere?
You know what? That's a good question. I've been asked this question before, and I think just now I'm coming up with a really good answer.
Sweet.
I think a person like that should buy a small amount of Bitcoin right now. Nothing will teach them about Bitcoin than holding a few $100. Like something like, I think anyone can afford to lose a few $100 in a very speculative educational way.
Yeah, if
Right?
you're investing money into Bitcoin, hopefully it's some money that you don't need desperately.
I mean, look, if you can't afford to lose $100, Bitcoin is not for you. Like, you have bigger problems in your life, and Bitcoin will not solve them, right? You should be the kind of person that can at least lose $100, okay? And this may be the perfect time, because this situation will probably be the most serious thing in Bitcoin. And there's no better way to learn Bitcoin than throwing your feet right into the fire with something on the line, but not too much on the line that you wouldn't see it as a learning experience.
Yeah, the money on the table keeps you interested enough to keep coming back and wanting to learn. Yep, and that's what I learned when I got into crypto. Yeah, I put some money into it. I didn't know what Bitcoin was. I looked into the technology. I bought one, and next thing you know, I'm here speaking with Tone Vays. You know, the money that you would put involved in things, like I even try to explain to people, like with training. I had a trainer for the gym for a while. I lost like 100 pounds, but I wouldn't have lost the weight if I wasn't paying somebody, because I was like, I'm not going to pay somebody and not listen to them. I'm going to take their advice. I'm going to put extra work in, or I'm going to waste my money and my body. So yeah, I'm with you. I've been telling people to, you know, like people are saying, oh, I have this much money. How much should I get? I've been saying like 20%. Like if you were going to throw whatever into Bitcoin today with this news, maybe just take 20% of it and wait with your 80% and learn. And when you feel comfortable, when you don't feel like you need to ask me what to do with it, go ahead and do something with it.
I agree. But that's the thing, right? The people have to come to you. I have thrown away way too much money giving Bitcoin to people, and I no longer do that. You know, I've even, like, in some cases, like I've given people, you know, 20, 30 bucks, you know, in Bitcoin. And like a year later, I'm talking to these people and I'm like, hey, remember that 40, 50 bucks in Bitcoin I gave you like a year and a half ago? It's probably worth about $300 right now. Is it still on your phone? I needed the app, I needed the space. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. And now because of the fees, I don't even give $1 to people, right? I'm like, you know what? Forget it. You want Bitcoin? Pay me $100 and I'll give you $100 in Bitcoin, right? I wouldn't sell you more than that because I value my Bitcoin. And that's what I would do. I mean, like, people have to get interested. Like, I no longer like try to convince people about it. People ask me and I'm like, not to ask me again, and I'm like, okay, fine. If you really want to know, I'll explain it. Because people that need to know, they will learn it. It's here. Bitcoin is extremely important, and it's the only means we have. It's the only ownership you really have these days that isn't controlled by someone else. People will come around, but right now is a very turbulent time. It's not the best time for newbies to get in, but if you really want a lesson, throw a few $100 in and live through this, because after you live through this, you'll also be the expert.
Perfect. I totally agree. A question that's on my mind is, how much of this recent market cap rise do you think is new money? And how do you think that those the people with new money in this space that are contributing to the overall market caps of everything, when this happens, you know, you see that the market cap as a whole will move, or do you think that they'll stay in crypto, move to something else? Like, what are your thoughts on this new market cap rise and the people that are now involved with it, and what it could potentially, you know, happen to these market caps?
I think a lot of the money coming into Bitcoin lately actually is new money. I think a lot more high net worth individuals have been getting very, very interested in Bitcoin lately. Now, this crazy ICO boom is mostly what's driving Ethereum, mostly. Though there are crazy people that are using Ethereum as a store of value. And that is just insane. People have been making fun of Bitcoin's scaling problems, but Ethereum's scaling problems have gone from non-existent 2 months ago to, oh, damn, last week. And that's only going to get exponentially worse on Ethereum. So I'm expecting I don't foresee the altcoin ICO boom lasting too much longer. There are people that are disagreeing with me, thinking that this bubble can last way longer. And I tend to be early to calling bubbles, and I'm probably early in calling this one. But I think the altcoin boom is in major trouble, due for a serious crash. No one knows if that crash is going to actually help drive Bitcoin up. But with Bitcoin's current situation, with a potential fork, people might be a little nervous into getting into Bitcoin. Price, people don't seem to be all that nervous. We had this big drop from 2,700 to 1,900, but it probably should have never gone all the way up to 2,700 in the first place.
Right.
That was an unreasonable run up. So to me, we seem to be doing pretty damn good. So people aren't getting nervous yet. Let's see. I mean, if we can get some more core developers on board with BIP 148 and a few like serious miners, even like 20-25% of the mining network to be on board with BIP 148, that's going to go such a long way for more confidence that Bitcoiners will get it done, and we will scale by end of year.
What do you sorry, one second, let me gather my thoughts. What do you think would be an altcoin that people would consider besides like Ethereum? Like where could you see somebody jumping ship to? Like, I wouldn't say you would advise them, but like, where do you just see like, if Bitcoin has any issues with this on August 1st, you could see this coin potentially gaining some traction because of X?
Litecoin.
I'm so excited. I've been saying the same thing, so I'm just happy that you agree with me. That is so great.
So for the record, I do not own any Litecoin. I am committed to Bitcoin. I believe that Bitcoin will fix the problem. The altcoin that is in the best position after Bitcoin, and mostly because they've adopted Bitcoin's technology of SegWit. And people are already testing Lightning, which is on SegWit. So Litecoin becomes in best position to do it. And I would be okay with Litecoin having that torch passed on to them, mostly because I never saw Litecoin as having a scammy launch to the token. The only other token that fits into that non-scammy launch boat is Monero, which had a minor hiccup in the beginning, but now it's somewhat forgivable. But Monero, I see some flaws with Monero. I'm not sure that your cryptocurrency needs to be inherently private. And Monero, just like Zcash, is too private for its own good, which is going to hinder it. There are certain things you can't do with the technology when it's too private. And I'm not an expert in the technology, by the way, but I don't see it. But Litecoin and Monero are the only two that I see as that I don't actually call out as scams. They're the only ones that I see being potentially useful. Now, having said that, do I think they're both overpriced at the moment? Probably. I think everything is overpriced. I think Bitcoin is priced just right, but I think all these other ones are a bit overpriced. But Litecoin isn't best positioned to do that. But keep in mind, and this is important, a Litecoin would be in best position to be a medium of exchange. It being a store of value is probably not going to happen, because if Bitcoin ruins people's, like, people have memories, right? Like every time there is like a major market crash, government comes in with all these regulations as to why it should never happen again, but it wasn't going to happen again anyway. Like the people still remember the dot-com crisis. I mean, I worked at Bear Stearns at the time. The whole company went under. Lehman Brothers, right next door to us, the whole company went under, right? Like, people want to blame all of these like financial institutions. Like 20% of all those people lost their jobs, lost their companies, lost their life savings, lost millions. Those mistakes were not going to be repeated, whether the regulation was to come or not. People have memories. the dot-com crash, I mean, the NASDAQ and the tech stocks weren't even close to the highs of 2000 when the 2007 bubble popped. People have memories. The same stupidity repeats like a generation later, and not the current generation. Like what we're seeing now with ICOs is the repeat of the 90s, because it's a different generation. It's the kids of those people from the 90s that were, 19-year-olds thinking they're professional traders from their house because eBay just came out, right? So those people are now, in their 40s and with families. But now it's 20 years later, and none of these guys were there. So you really need a whole other generation. I'm trying to remember how I got to this topic. Oh, yeah. So if Bitcoin splits in two and Bitcoin loses this store of value property, why on earth would anyone trust any other altcoin that is clearly inferior with the store of value property? People have memories. I wouldn't put, if I lose, all my value in Bitcoin, I would never put more than, I don't know, a few $100 or a few $1,000 into the next most useful altcoin. And I would only do it because I would need to transact in it. And notice how I said need to, not want to. Like I only use Bitcoin when I have to use Bitcoin. Otherwise, I'll use a credit card, or I'll use cash if I have cash on me. Like I don't use Bitcoin for ideological purposes. I use it when I need to buy something, and for certain reasons, for either to protect my anonymity or because the seller of the product or a service only accepts Bitcoin. That's when I use Bitcoin. I don't use it when a credit card is the option and the price is the same. I'll probably use a credit card unless I need to protect my address or my name.
Yes, personally, I use Bitcoin for like money purposes. So like if I buy Bitcoin at X price and it goes up, I'm going to spend Bitcoin at the corner store via my debit card. Or if it goes down from the last time I bought in, I'll probably use my USD Visa debit card. So like I'm constantly using cryptocurrencies. Luckily, I have a Visa debit card that I can actually use Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. So I can shift through whichever one's up in the day.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I don't use it that way. Like I said, I only use it for things when I have to, not when I want to. And yeah, so but I do use Bitcoin as a store of value and like protecting my assets. And if Bitcoin fails me in this regard, I will never trust another crypto with that property. And I don't know how many people are like me that are thinking this. But that's how I see it. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm right. But in order for me to be right, Bitcoin would have to lose that store of property, store of value property, and I don't believe that it will. If I believed that it will, I would have cashed out already.
Gotcha. All right, so let's dig into a little bit about Tone. I have Tone Vays here, so I want to get to know you. I'm sure that people, I'm knocking things over myself. I'm sure that the people want to get to know you a little bit, So, my first question though is like, what's next for Tone Vays? Like, do you have anything on your agenda that you're adding to your, personal portfolio? I mean, you already got the podcast, you got everything else going on your YouTube, the consulting, stuff like that. Is there anything next for you? Like, what's that next big move for Tone?
Oh man, that's a really good question. So look, I really planned on, so I trade traditional markets, but I trade seasonally. I trade earnings season. So my earnings season recently ended. My earnings season was, it was mid-April to mid-May. So I figured, okay, so mid-May and then end of May, there was the Consensus Conference here in New York. And I usually go away. Like, I have a month and a half off. I work on the internet, and I love to travel. And I was going to go away to some, third world countries, which is where I usually go. Internet's a little spotty, but because of what's going on in the Bitcoin space, like I can't. I canceled all my trips. Thank God I didn't actually book the airlines. And I'm staying home in order to like fully understand this, be prepared for it, and inform all of my followers on it. And I, like you said, I do offer a consulting service, and people have been calling me up. I only started that recently. In a way, I was forced to start it. I started getting a big following, and there's only one of me, and I can't answer everybody's questions. It's just impossible. So I put a paywall up, and I'm like, hey, for 0.1 Bitcoins an hour, you can get me on the phone anytime. Well, anytime. I'll make the first available hour for you. And that's been, it's been picking up a little bit. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm not surprised, though. You have a really
busy.
well-proven track record. You post your trades publicly, I believe, right?
Well, that's the thing. I'm a little different. Like I decided to, like, I never post the trades that I actually do. Like the trading that I do is very, very proprietary, and it's very, very advanced, and it's not in the crypto space.
I do know that you don't like to talk about,
I don't think there. Now, like, there's only 3 people in my life that would understand what I do, so I can't even explain it to anyone. But I found that I'm an amazing analyst of things. I don't actually trade because it makes me completely unbiased, and it allows me to change my mind quickly, and it makes it a lot easier for me to analyze something when I'm not married to a trade in it, trying to prove that I'm right. So that's been helping. But once this is over, once we get through this user-activated soft fork, I'm hoping nothing huge would like land onto the Bitcoin space again, and maybe I'll be able to take some time off and actually do some traveling. I'm also a content creator, and it needs to be more professional. So what I'm trying to spend more time learning video editing, audio editing, graphics editing. I know I see you have nice, what do you call them? The pictures that you make for your YouTube videos.
Oh, thank you. I can show you that. That's no problem.
I mean, I do mine myself as well, but it still takes me an enormous amount of time. So I'm trying to be a little more professional in content creation. And because I'm already doing what I want to do. Like I hated going, I've already changed careers several times. I'm already doing what I love to do, traveling the world, speaking in public, educating people when they call for consulting, and making videos and making content and that people enjoy. And also trading. I just need to, be a little more disciplined in my trading. There's always things to learn there. And like the next step is I just have to learn Spanish. That's like the one language that I really need to know, because it really hurts me on an entire third of the world to travel. So that's next for me. Once this is over, I'm going to take a serious dive into learning some Spanish. A third of the world speaks Spanish, and they don't care to speak English. So I have to conform to them, and they're not going to conform to me.
I can respect that. I'd recommend Rosetta Stone. I tried it for Mandarin. I got up to like the first disc, and I can say some things. I'm not 100% sure what they are, but Rosetta Stone was really, really fun, and I feel like I learned a lot. So to keep touching on like the personal like Tone Vays side, I hope you don't mind answering this, and if you do, just say skip. I'll go next. But like, what were one of your best trades, and what were one of your worst trades, and what contributed to those moves?
In the traditional markets, or like in Bitcoin?
In any sense, actually. Ooh, great new question. What's the difference there?
Well, I don't really trade much Bitcoin. Yeah, so I mean, like anytime. Look, buying Bitcoin is always going to be no matter when you buy it, is always going to be the most difficult, scariest investment decision of your life. And it's actually worked out for everyone because we're at all-time highs, right? Even if you bought at the 2013 top.
You doubled your money.
Yeah. So I've never really had, I mean, I've had bad investments with my Bitcoin. That was a huge mistake where I thought I can be a VC and invested, and never again. Lost a lot of Bitcoin, let's put it that way. But let's talk about traditional markets. See, the best, this is this is a better question than you realize. When you say what was your best trade, so I've had a trade where that was complete luck, and I didn't have much money in the account, and I didn't have that much money on the trade, and it was and I'll let you decide what if that's the best trade. So I don't know if you understand options trading.
Very, very noobish.
Okay. Well, I had some options that were almost becoming worthless, basically. And I had they were, because I already made some money on the trade. I made like 5% on the trade or something. A little more than that. So I made like 20% on the trade. The trade may be like 2 or 3% of my portfolio. Like I increased the size of my portfolio by let's say 5% with this trade. But the trade had a little bit of hangover there. And options either expire worthless or they expire and you can cash them out. So I had some time on expiration and they were worthless. I could have sold them for like $50. And I'm like, well, what's the point? You know, I already made like a few $1,000s on this trade. I have these options sitting there. You know what? Who knows what can happen? I was just like, in a way, I was too lazy to sell. I was like hoping, you know what? There's 3 weeks left. Who the hell knows? And I opened my account like 3 days later. Like I opened it every day, but market had just opened. And I'm like, oh God, market open. I opened it up. And the entire value of my portfolio has doubled.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what the hell just happened? By me holding on to them, the company ended up being bought out at double the price of the stock. So these call options that I had literally went from being worthless with 3 weeks to go to each one being worth like thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Because the company was but okay, so you tell me what if that's the best trade versus I have recently taken on several trades. A perfect trade where you enter it and you have almost zero risk, and within minutes of entering, for the next 3 days, nothing can happen that can lose you money, and you take 20% off the table, off the like 20%, 30% value of the trade. So here's the difference, right? Is your best trade a dumb luck trade that made you the most money, or is your best trade something that you found an efficiency in the market where you know you are entering a trade and it's impossible for you to lose money? You're not going to be a millionaire, but you will take down 20% gain within 3 to 4 days with no risk. And I've had several of these trades, and the real discipline is only to do those trades. Don't hold on to lottery tickets. You sit there and wait, and this is why I only trade earnings season, because these are the kinds of trades I focus on where I'm entering the trade and I know for a fact I cannot lose money as long as I stick to my rules. And to me, that's the best trade. A trade that's guaranteed to make you 15 to 20% with almost no risk.
I think you're right with calling that one the best one, but I got to say my favorite is saying you know you're already made in profit. What's the worst that could happen? And the best happen. I want that to be my favorite. So to cover up on to cover some more.
By the way, sorry. The other part of your question, I'll make this real quick. I've had some insane disasters. Like,
yeah.
I've had trades where, like, the worst thing that can happen will happen. Like I remember when I was still trading the futures a few years ago, and I was short commodities, gold, oil, silver, because everyone expected Janet Yellen to raise rates in September of 2015, and she didn't. She raised them in December. So when she didn't raise them in December 2015, commodities just shot through the roof. I was like blowing up my portfolio. And I even held out. I'm like, no, this makes no sense. They're not supposed to go up. It like 2 to 3 weeks, and it continued to go up. And it literally, like, I couldn't wait any longer, and I sold at the very top. And then it started to go down in October. And then Janet did raise rates in December, and like the whole trade would have been amazing. If not only if she did what she was supposed to do, but also if it didn't continue going up in the opposite direction till the last day when I was forced to liquidate my positions. So like I've had plenty of those trades. And one more. And again, so that was the most painful one as far as how much money I lost. Most frustrating one, like for example, I trade these complicated spread trades, and they're complicated to the point where I screwed up like minorly last quarter, where I was selling a position that was profitable. But because of my very complicated trades, I forgot to put a minus sign because you're buying, you're never selling, you're always buying a complicated spread. So in order to sell it, you have to put a minus sign in front of it. Or if you're buying it, it's positive. So I was looking to sell, to exit, and I forgot the minus sign, or I added the minus sign, and I basically ended up paying someone to take a profitable trade off my hands. So the moment that happens, you're like, what did I just do? It's like it wasn't for a big amount, it was for a small amount. But this is like stupidity at its finest, because it's not like someone stole your Bitcoin, you paid someone to take your Bitcoin off your hands.
Some solidarity for you. When I was early to this, I did something very similar. I got on Poloniex. I'm trying to learn how to trade. I think I wanted to do a trade on, I want to say Ethereum. And I went to do a buy or whatever, and I put the price that I wanted in, and I was off by a zero, like a decimal place, or not the decimal, but the zero wasn't there, and I ended up paying like way more for Ethereum. Like a lot more for Ethereum than I wanted to. Somebody was very happy. I paid well over the market value.
All right, that exactly. So again, what is the worst trade? The one where you lost more money, or the one where you're clearly showing like, I mean, I chalk those up to, you know what? Oh wow, I can't believe I just did that. But yeah, so it depends, like what the worst trade is.
Yeah, I'll let the viewers decide that. I want to get to know Tone Vays a little bit more. So besides cryptocurrencies and investing, what is a topic that we could talk about that would pique your interest outside of this? Like, what's something that you're into that is not this?
God, you know what? All of my hobbies and interests disappeared once I fully started becoming, you know, a visible person in the Bitcoin space and started taking it seriously. My hobbies were diet and exercise and playing sports, and I haven't done those in a while.
Yep, I'm up like 20 pounds since I started YouTubing.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm down like 20 pounds.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we have the opposite issues. Gaining weight and losing weight. I think gaining's probably harder, but losing's harder to keep the results.
Well, I didn't just lose weight. I actually lost muscle.
Hey, you look good though, man. Another question.
By the way, look at the price behind you there.
Oh wow, hi. That is amazing. As we're talking, people are buying. I'm curious, who do you watch on YouTube? Like, who's somebody you're like, you know what, I wonder what they're talking about on YouTube today. Watch. Like,
You
and
know what?
why? Like, who do you like and why?
I wish I had more time to watch people. Oh man, so I really do. I'm so behind on the few podcasts. So the only podcast that I was listening to religiously was Bitcoin Uncensored. But Chris and Joseph broke up, and Chris is now doing it on his own, and Joseph started his own, and I just had not had time to catch up with them. But that was my, I'm not going to say go-to podcast, but that was a podcast that I enjoyed listening to. Of course, these days, I like Adam Meister. I do watch Adam Meister's shows, mostly because they're short. I can't make a short podcast to save my life. Anytime I flip on YouTube, it's always at least an hour long. But he manages to get them. They used to be like 10 minutes. Now he's up to 20 minutes. And also he mentions my name like all the time. So out of respect, I kind of feel like I need to be paying attention to his show. I need to catch up on Vortex's show on the World Crypto Network. And I do try to catch Mad Bitcoins, Thomas Hunt, and the people that he interviews. That's really about it. I don't really have anybody else. There's like one-offs. Every now and then Andreas Antonopoulos would do a video. And it's mostly because people are like, if more than 3 people tweet a video at me, I will watch it. Like, okay, it's probably important. Yeah, so I just saw one of those today, Andreas's Q&A about the ICOs. I thought it was great. So every now and then, if people tweeting the same video at me, I did see Trace Mayer's interview about the user-activated soft fork with what's his name, Jeff Barwick. But there's no shows. Unfortunately, I just don't have time. The only show outside of the Bitcoin space that I do watch is, do you like sports? Do you watch sports?
I do not. I don't follow sports. I never have, actually.
So I used to. I mean, I used to play sports. I mean, I've played all the sports, not hockey, but
a volleyball, right?
Well, volleyball was my sport, but I mean, I've tried out for the baseball team in college as well. I've always played like softball and on leagues and teams. Back when I was a kid, I used to play basketball and football all the time. I was a pretty good athlete, and but volleyball was the sport where I had, I guess, like for example, I had about the same skills across all the sports. But volleyball was the one where I had the least competition. So I was able to excel at that one better. So that was pretty much my sport that I did play in college a little bit. And then after that, played on like Division A volleyball teams. But I do pay attention to sports. I don't have time to watch any sports. College football. I watch college because I went to Florida State. That kind of got me into college football. So college football is the only sport I watch, but I like to pay attention to what's going on in sports. So I do watch Pardon the Interruption, which is a show on ESPN. And when I can't watch it, I listen to the podcast. And it's only 20 minutes without commercials, 30 minutes if watching live. That's pretty much the only show. Like other than that, it's your usual Game of Thrones, Billions. If you haven't seen Billions, I strongly recommend it.
Yes,
it's
definitely.
It relates to this world very well, finance.
Have you seen Black Mirror?
I have. Recently, actually. I think just last year or early this year, I saw it. And Silicon Valley is awesome too. I like that one.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty deep in Silicon Valley right now.
Yeah, I like Black Mirror. I like those concepts of like futuristic technology.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the first episode of Black Mirror, I was a little turned off to it as a concept, but then I saw the second episode, the third, I was like, all right, they know what they're doing. The first one, if everyone's watching and listening, and you go watch Black Mirror, the first episode is very rough. Don't watch it with your mom. and you'll get past the first episode, and every episode's better.
Right. Don't judge the show by episode 1.
And
Now,
don't skip episode 1. Episode 1's very important.
Yeah.
It opens your mind. It opens your mind to some crazy stuff that the other episodes touch on.
Well, what I didn't know when I was watching Black Mirror was I didn't know that each episode is independent, like Twilight Zone.
Yes.
And after I saw episode 1, I was like, okay, so how do you continue this, right? But you can say that about every episode, right? No matter, so you can watch any episode first and any episode last. Each episode is completely independent of any other episode.
You're right. They do have a mind-opening pattern, though, that I think I've seen. Maybe I'm just too much of a stoner. I don't know. So we covered like people that you do like to get some information or entertainment from, but do you know of anybody in particularly that you think people should be wary of, maybe steer away from, that may be producing FUD or promoting scams, something in that nature? Just and somebody that you're thinking, hey guys, just maybe steer away from that. Not to put them on blast, but just it's an honest opinion. And there's some people that I think that people should be aware of. I just wonder if there's anybody that's on your radar.
Well, in the economic world, because I was talking about crypto world. In the economic world, I used to read a bunch of blogs, but now the only one I try to keep up with is Martin Armstrong's economic blog. And I try to stay away from all the gloom and doomers. I thank God I tuned them out. Life's much better that way. Who to stay away from in the crypto space? Honestly, people that believe in the blockchain without the Bitcoin. And there's so many of these people. Lately, I've been going at it with Emin Gunsayer, the professor from Cornell, William Muguliar, the guy that ran the Token Summit. I just can't respect these guys because they're literally endorsing what I feel are scams. Also people that write these ridiculous books like the Tapscots. I don't think they know. Anyone that stands there in a suit and, just because he wrote a book to make money, it doesn't mean he understands the technology. And that's what a lot of these guys are. They just leech onto it and write a book. Andreas is an exception of someone that's writing a book. So these are the people I would advise to kind of be very, very weary of. And anyone trying to convince you that their altcoin has solved all of Bitcoin's problems, because that's just ridiculous.
I can respect. That's an honest answer, man. Thank you so much. So just like to touch up on something here. Is there any questions I should have asked you? Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get on the table?
No, I think we covered the the user activated soft fork and why people are nervous. I haven't. I'll save it for my podcasts as to how much I'm planning on supporting the movement, because a lot of people are a little bit careful, and I think I need to be more prepared before I start, pushing people into one direction or another, and that's what I need to work on. So that's on my to-do list this month, is to be fully prepared for what's coming August 1st by July 1st. So that's really on my plate. And I'll be doing a lot of videos and talking about this over the next month.
All right, everybody, you heard that. So again, definitely for the next week and for up to the next 2 months, you're going to want to tune in to Tone, his podcast. I'm going to get a bunch of links together in the description box below. So just tap on the info box. There's going to be a ton of Tone's links down there. Get in touch. And if you need any consulting work, he's definitely the guy. Like you said, 0.1 Bitcoin gets you one-on-one. So from the bitcoinpodcast.com, Tone, I'd like to say thank you for taking this time. And as you know, we like to end with a pretty unique question. I'm going to tweak it a little bit here and see if you can explain what a fork is in 10 words or less.
Ooh, okay. A fork is a split in consensus rules that govern the immutability and censorship resistance of a blockchain.
I lost count halfway in there, but I think you got it. If we
I'm
cut out
close.
the first couple words, we got it.
You gotta cut out like the is and the a. You only gotta count real words.
But you guys got the gist of it. There you go. A fork in 10 words or less. Tone, thank you so much for this time you took. I really appreciate you coming onto the show and explaining or helping us get a better understanding of this BIP 148 UASF. Thanks again, and everybody, don't forget to hit up Tone. Have a day.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Bye.